lived here for many years, so I am aware of a lot of things that a lot of people are not aware of regarding the wars in the Middle East. I've been through several. Today, I'm going to illustrate to you how bad off America is right now, not just in the Middle East, but in the Pacific and Europe. But we're going to dwell heavily on the Middle East. Okay? And I'm going to go into my live stream briefly while we wait for people to come in to the live stream, because it takes them a little bit of time to get a notice and come in. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping in the live stream. Oops. Well, now we know we got sound and picture. And a little bit of housekeeping, which is fast. Okay, having difficulty with this. Continued difficulty. Let me see what I can do. Why? Still. I think I got it. Hang on a minute. Okay. Since we're a Bible believing site, I want to do our praise and then we'll begin. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 So I got a pair of the latest generation of these polarized glasses with a blue tint, and they seem to really work. Of all the ones I've tried, they seem to work. Okay. There are some prayer requests that I want to deal with, and you could send prayer requests in too. My email address is in the chat. It's at the bottom of the description box of the video. So we pray for animals, and we do very good with that. We want to pray for a dog named Remington for healing. A dog named Remington for healing. Remington, a dog for healing. Now we have another dog we're praying for named Shadow. Front legs hurt. Problem with the front legs. Healing for a dog named Shadow. Front legs. We have healing requests for PC, Papa Charlie, PC, Papa Charlie, healing for a knee. For a knee to be healed for Papa Charlie. Okay. Let me remove those so I know they're done, because I think this might be a repeat. I'm not sure, but we'll make sure. Okay. We also have a prayer request for LN, Lima Nancy, LN rather, Lima Nancy, LN, Lima Nancy. The prayer request is doesn't lose license. I believe it's a driver's license. So LN, Lima Nancy, doesn't lose driver's license is the prayer request. Okay. Um, First, I want to read a couple of scriptures for you, just to set some ground rules here. Isaiah 34:16 and 17. Seek you out of the book of Jehovah and read, no one of these shall fail. In other words, no scripture will fail. None shall want her mate, for my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. And he hath cast the lot for them, and his hand hath divided it unto them by line. They shall possess it forever, from generation to generation shall they dwell there. Now, we possessed it in 1948, and we never left, and we're not going to leave. You're not going to see that happen. I don't care what the church is teaching. I read you the scripture. Now I want to read you another scripture to that effect. Amos 9:15. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God. Okay? So let's just set aside all this garbage they teach, all right? I just want to lay the ground rules. Now, let's take a poke at the rapture theories that the churches preach, and let's line them up. This is sorry, I want you to understand what I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to line these up with the words of Yeshua in John chapter 6. Now you need to decide, do you wish to reject the words of Yeshua? And then it says in the scriptures, if you reject knowledge, he will reject you. Or are you man or woman enough to realize that all these years you may have been sitting in some church or Messianic congregation and they were feeding you a line of garbage, and you need to wake up and get right with the Bible. Now I'm giving you scriptures. I'm not just okay? And I'm giving you very clear scriptures. John 6:39. And this is the Father's will which had sent me. So if you're sitting in a church that's preaching against the Father's will, and you want to keep going there and keep doing it, you're a partaker in a doctrine of demons. Inescapable. And this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. That's your rapture. Everybody goes up on the same day, the last day. And how do you know it's the last day? From trumpets and no. The last day is there's no more days. Got it? It's simple. I'm not going to run around with trumpets and shofars and all this junk they do in the churches, the Sunday churches. You know, they change the Sabbath to Sunday. Do you know whose birthday is December 25th? Tammuz, the sun god. Yes, it is. It's a mythological thing, but that's his birthday. What's his mother's name? Esther, as in Easter. And if you were going to dedicate the day of worship to the sun god. Would you call it Monday or Tuesday or Thursday? Or perhaps you'd call it Sun Day. Wake up. John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. He said it a second time. You want to reject it? Everybody goes up on the same day. You want to go around preaching a pre-trib rapture or a mid-trib or a post-trib with a left behind? You're going against the words of Yeshua. You want that? Go to the Red Cross, take swimming lessons, so you'll be more effective in the lake of fire. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. After Satan's released in Revelation 20, when the 1,000 years are over, he gathers them like the sand of the sea, surrounds Jerusalem and New Jerusalem, and fire comes down from heaven and burns everything up, the earth and the universe. Then we meet him in the air, because there's no place to stand, and we go up on clouds to heaven and spend eternity with Jehovah and Yeshua. Now, you want to throw that out the window, go ahead, but don't expect to get to heaven that way. It doesn't work. Now, he says it again in John 6:44. Now, you'll be rejecting it 3 times. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. Okay, he said it a 3rd time. That's not enough. He said it a 4th time. So what are you going to say at the judgment? Oh, I didn't believe the scriptures? John 6:54, whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood, that's communion, hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So if you want to go run around and reject the teachings of Yeshua for the Darby and the Schofield Bible and the denominations, I can't help you any more than this. I can give you one other set of scriptures to show you how silly it is. We'll go to Matthew 7. We'll start in verse 20. Wherefore, by their fruits shall you know them. So if they're teaching you against the words of Yeshua, that's really bad fruit. And bad fruit only comes from a bad tree, and good fruit only comes from a good tree. It's absolutes. You want to hang around with the bad tree? Don't complain when you wind up in the lake of fire. Please, don't whine, okay? You're doing it to yourself. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. Well, that's what the churches predominantly teach. All you have to do is know who the Lord is. That's not what Yeshua said. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. If they said it to him as Lord, Lord, they knew who he was. But he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. Remember, he said, faith without works is dead. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? Well, the Jews don't prophesy in the name of Yeshua, do they? Neither do the Muslims, the Hindus, the Buddhists, or the atheists. It's the church. And in thy name have cast out devils. That's the church. It's not the Buddhists, not the Muslims, not the Hindus, not the atheists. It's the church. And in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Iniquity is lawlessness. Who is it that preaches the law is dead? The churches. All of them, I think. What did Yeshua say? Think not that I came to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. For as long as there's a heaven and an earth, not one jot or tittle shall be done away with from the law. I see there's a heaven and an earth. Yet they teach you that the law is done away with. Now, I admit you can't fulfill a lot of the law right now because there's no priesthood, no temple, no altar. But that is where the grace kicks in. Okay? Do you think Yeshua gave you license under grace to murder, rape, be an adulterer, steal, torture, arson, extortion, blackmail, kidnapping? Of course he didn't. Why do you think the great? What do you think the grace is for then? It's because you can't follow the law in these days. All right, now we'll go to the war. All right, I just wanted to lay my groundwork here for people that come in and are, going to banty around the church doctrines. Okay. California, huh? Okay. All right. What did the Houthi rebels do about 48 hours ago? I will tell you. There's a ship called Galaxy Leader, I think it was called. Anyway, it was a smallish cargo vessel traveling in the Red Sea near Yemen. It actually had an owner that was 50. One of the half owners was an Israeli guy, a billionaire. And there was another owner who wasn't Israeli, and the British had some rights to the boat. Apparently, they leased it to somebody, and it wound up going to some Japanese company or something like that. There was apparently no Israelis on the boat at all in the crew, and it was not a passenger vessel, so it was the crew only, 50 people it's estimated to be. All right? And the Houthis is a rebel group that probably controls Yemen, like Hezbollah controls Lebanon. They declared war on Israel, the Houthis, a few weeks ago based on Gaza and Hamas. Okay? They shot numerous missiles, longer range missiles, at Israel, and the American ships in the Red Sea took them down, and Israeli ships took them down, and anti-missile missiles we have took them down. They were aiming for a lot. So they sort of got burned out on shooting missiles up there that don't get through. See, at that distance, the missile trajectory, of course, is calculated by a computer, and they do an intercept with an anti-missile missile, and they got plenty of time to do it. It's not like they shoot rockets from Gaza a distance of 4 or 5 miles, or 6 or 7 or 8, and the time that people have to get to the shelter in the south of Israel near Gaza from the time the missile launch is detected is 15 seconds. You go to Hezbollah, you go to Tel Aviv, and they usually would have about a minute to get to a shelter. So you have a bunch of injuries in the south from people running to shelters, holding things, carrying children, pets, or whatever. A lot of the shelters are inside the house. It's illegal to build a house without a bomb shelter. I think they call it a mamad in Hebrew. It's not a word you find in the Bible meaning a bomb shelter. There's no bomb shelters in the Bible. All right. So I have to run outside and then enter. But some people don't have a bomb shelter, and because the house is divided into 3 or 4 apartments, and they can't get into the other apartments, so there's community shelters, and it's a whole big thing. It's not done very efficiently, okay? Now, the Houthis have threatened to take out Israeli warships in the Red Sea area with anti-ship missiles, and they've also threatened to take out American warships in the Red Sea area, which there's 3 or 4, using their anti-ship missiles. They have not, as far as I know, not executed that threat, nor have they attempted it yet. Does that mean they won't? No, I would expect they will. Okay, so along comes this ship, and instead of trying to sink the ship, with a missile, they took a helicopter, which is a Russian helicopter. It's a transport helicopter, not a attack helicopter. And they flew it over the ship, and at first we were told they went down by rappelling on a rope, but it appears to actually touch down on the ship. Or if they didn't touch down, they got very low, and the guys could have jumped out, or maybe they used a rope to break their fall, but they got very close. There's a video of this that was released not by the Houthis, but by the formal government of Yemen, which shows they're on the side of the Houthis. Yemen in the Bible is called Taman. In English, you would think of it as Teman. It's Yemen, but in the Hebrew, the country is Taman. Okay? They boarded the ship. Of course, they were mean to the crew. They pointed guns at them, and they were doing their chants all through the ship. And they took over the ship. You know, they have the crew. They point a gun at them, drive the ship here to Yemen, or I'll kill you. You know, that kind of thing. And they took the ship to Yemen, and they docked it up, and they took the 50 crew. I'm assumptive there were prisoners of war, because the Houthis declared war on Israel, and because the boat was half owned by an Israeli, although rented out to others like the UK and Japan, they didn't care. They said, okay, so according to Sharia law, we took the ship. Now, I looked up Sharia law with prisoners of war, and I'll look it up right now for you and read it to you, what the Islam tells them to do with prisoners of war. Men, women, and children may all be taken as prisoners of war under traditional interpretations of Islamic law. This is coming out of wikipedia.org. Generally, a prisoner of war could be at the discretion of the military leader, freed, ransomed, exchanged for Muslim prisoners, or kept in bondage. Okay. Now that is sort of what happened with Hamas doing that to us on October 7th. Then it goes on, I'm reading from journalforces.gc.ca. Thus far, it has been demonstrated that the Quran advocates that prisoners of war, as a bare minimum, be kept from harm, that they be fed, and that they be either released upon payment of a ransom or let go without ransom. Okay, let me keep going. Another source says, this is encyclopedia.pub. The freeing or ransoming of prisoners by Muslims themselves is highly recommended as a charitable act. The Quran also urges kindness to captives and recommends their liberation by purchase or manumission. I don't know that word. The freeing of captives is recommended for both for the expiation of sins and as an act of simple benevolence. Okay. The prophet, as they refer to him, Muhammad, captured many prisoners based on the Quranic permission during the battles took place in his lifetime. He treated them as humanly as the Quran verses required. He eventually released either unconditionally or upon ransom for money or a service. All right, so you got the idea. However, what happened when Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th, they burned children alive in ovens. They took people and bound them with wire and burned them alive. They got people in houses that were in the bomb shelters and they couldn't get them out. They burned the whole house down to kill them. They executed people that were civilians in front of their children and the children in front of the parents. And they raped the women and they abused and deformed the bodies. So is it a logical assumption to assume that the allies of Hamas, which the Houthis are, and Hezbollah is, and Iran is, actually not only an ally, a supporter, do you believe they would treat the prisoners of war differently than Hamas? I don't. So what happens to these 50 prisoners of war? Now, it's rumored, based on pictures seen of people on the deck of the boat wearing t-shirts that had the name of a national park in America, I think it was Grand Teton or something, that they were thinking, well, it's unlikely some guy living in a foreign country would have a t-shirt like that because only an American would know from this park. You know, and it could be. It's a decent assumption, but just an assumption. It's a speculation. So there might be Americans on this boat. And it's also rumored that the boat, which originally we heard was transporting vehicles, it had something to do with Turkey. Turkey either bringing it there or taking it from Turkey, something like that. It said that there were military weapons on the boat. Now, I haven't had that confirmed. I heard it was vehicles, but military vehicles could very likely be the case. What these vehicles were, I don't know. I didn't see them in the video I watched. I have the video on my Telegram site. If you want to follow the war in detail, blow by blow, all these wars in the Middle East, join my Telegram group, which is free. It's you can download the app Telegram Messenger. You install it, then write me an email. My email's in the description box. It's in the chat. I'll read it to you. It's israelgiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. israelgiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. I have a lot of pictures of the wars, videos from the war. I put up a good 100 posts or more every day. There's no censorship on Telegram, so the information flows freely, okay? I also do Bible studies on there as well. So there you have it, if you really want to follow the war. And right now that would include the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, okay? And also, to a good extent, what's going on in Iraq and Syria. Now, in Iraq and Syria, America is admitting to 70 plus attacks on the American bases in Iraq and Syria. Now, if they're admitting to 70 attacks, we could say, would America exaggerate that number? I doubt it. Could they downplay it? It's possible. So people are saying the attacks could be more, like over 100 or 150. And gosh, I don't know. It's a speculation. And your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. But that's what people are saying, and what they're basing it on is, again, speculation. This is what the Houthis did, is the nightmare I've been talking about for a long time, about the Houthis shutting down shipping in the Red Sea because they're located down at the bottom of the Red Sea, near the Arabian Sea, near the Sea of Oman, where there's a very narrow pincher point, and the ships have to go through there, and the Houthis can get them there. Similar to Turkey and the Bosphorus Straits, which would be considered the entrance from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. Very important to Russia. And it's important to America because if they could get Turkey to close that Bosphorus Straits, then Russia can't use ships to go from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. And they have a important Navy base to Russia in the Mediterranean, their only base in the Mediterranean, which is located in Latakia, Syria, on the water of the Mediterranean, and a few kilometers inland, maybe 3 or 5 kilometers, not a big distance, maybe at most 5 or 10 miles, probably not even that. They have a Latakia air base where they keep Russian planes. And Russia avidly fights with aircraft, helping Bashar Assad, the guy that's running Syria, fight forces opposing him. Most popular would be ISIS, and others. There's also Iraqi militia groups and Syrian militia groups that oppose Bashar Assad and will attack him and have attacked him in recent weeks. If he gets deeply involved in a war with Israel, they will attack him, and Russia helps Bashar Assad bomb these people. The Iraqi militias have been getting weapons from Iran and possibly Russia, but I don't know that, to attack American bases. And they've caused casualties. I don't know if anybody died or how many American soldiers died, if any. But there's been a bunch of casualties for traumatic brain injury, which happens when you're taking cover. Of course, large explosives are coming in from mortars or missiles or even artillery. Okay, so they transferred them to, I think, the Ramstein base in Germany, where they have a sophisticated military hospital with all the correct diagnostic equipment and so forth. Okay. So the Houthis have begun to shut down the Red Sea, and because the missiles could knock their missiles down, they decided to just go out with a helicopter and board the boat. Frequently, maritime vessels don't carry weapons. Sometimes they do. It's a living nightmare for merchant marine maritime vessels, civilian vessels, to carry weapons. That when they go to port, the government doesn't want them there with weapons. Now, some places they can lock the weapons in a locker and put a seal on it and show that the weapon locker will not be opened until they're 25 miles offshore or whatever their maritime distance is for that country. Sometimes it's 3 miles, 10 miles, whatever. In other instances, we've seen videos of people on civilian weapons on ships. They hire mercenaries or people with military police experience to accompany the boat with assault rifles, and they throw these assault rifles overboard when they were approaching the country. Big yachts do this also. A yacht going, let's say, from Miami to Monte Carlo, or you take your pick, Cannes Festival, whatever. We're talking of a boat that would typically be at least 180 feet, probably more like 250 to 400 feet, big yachts. Little yachts, which are really not so much yachts, like a 120-foot yacht, that's the type of yacht that, you can run with a small crew. Let's say you're a billionaire and you like yachts and you like going out on the water, and, a 120-foot boat will have maybe 8, 10 crew, okay? And it'll accommodate 8 or 10 people, which you really never take. So the price to keep the crew on salary, which you have to do all year round, is much less. The bigger boats have crews of 25 to 70 people, but when you start getting up into yachts that are 270 to 370 feet, in that realm, the crews are frequently going to be 25 or 40 people, and a lot of people don't want a boat that big and have all that crew. It's expensive, and you don't even know who you are, and your privacy's starting to get affected, and this kind of thing. And you can only carry 12 passengers under international maritime law, even if your boat is 500 feet, if you're a private vessel. If you classify your boat as a commercial vessel, like a cruise ship, then you could carry hundreds. But probably 98 or 99% of the big yachts, if not all of them, would never classify themselves like that. Now, they could carry, 50 or 60 crew, but they can only have 12 passengers. Now, if they're going to moor up at Hawaii or someplace like that, they keep the boat in Hawaii, or let's say you keep it in Fort Lauderdale and they moor up at the pier in Fort Lauderdale, they could have 200 people on the boat for a party as long as they don't leave the dock. They could have 800 people, nobody cares, as long as the boat's not moving. It's tied up to the dock. If there's a problem, a fire, or whatever, you just walk off the boat, So there's stringent fire standards, lots of equipment, lifeboat protocols, lifeboat drill, all kinds of stuff. So they don't want to bother with it. All right. So with a 120-foot boat, what they'll normally do is they have yacht carriers that are very, very big boats, and they have places, compartments where they fill with water. And they put the boat in there filled with water, and they could carry, a handful of boats, maybe 8 or 10 boats, across the ocean in this great big transport boat. A lot of the boats are 50, 100 feet, A 250-foot boat is going to do it himself. Yacht captains usually say they want about 160, 180 feet as a bare bones minimum to cross the Atlantic or the Pacific. They don't want to try it with less than that. So a lot of guys that have no interest in taking the boat across the oceans buy a smaller boat, and it's very comfortable. They can go out, 100 miles in the middle of the ocean and go fishing and play around, or go visit islands, and So you could have boats with guns if you're not going to go visit other countries. If you're going to start going to visit Nassau, you got a problem. Unless some of those Caribbean islands let you lock it up in a locker. But if you don't actually dock up at any of these islands or go into their international waters, you don't need to worry about that. But so the yacht guys will cross an ocean with, they might have 6 security guards on the boat, and they got assault weapons and pistols. So if pirates come to board the boat, they'll shoot at the pirates, and the pirates don't want to get shot at. Now, pirates can launch RPGs at the boat and make holes in the boat and blow the boat up, and they hit it multiple times, the boat will go down. But doesn't work that way, because they'll show them the RPG, and then the guys on the boat are going to say, yeah, great, we'll surrender, and they'll kill us, no thanks. And they start shooting at them, taking their chances with the RPGs. Now, hitting a moving boat that's going to be zigzagging at a reasonable rate of speed from an RPG that's on a moving boat with the waves and everything else is not such an easy feat if they're hundreds of yards away. It depends on the size of the boat, and if they're broadside, or if you keep the boat pointed at them, it's not such a big target. So anyway, in World War II, they put not just guns on the merchant marine vessels because the Nazis were attacking and sinking them. They put artillery pieces on there, like 3 to 5 inch or even 6 inch guns, artillery pieces, sometimes 2. And they trained the crew, and they gave the crew a reasonable amount of ammo for the gun. So if a raider from, the Germans was trying to capture the boat, they usually were after the cargo. The cargo, they could take the boat, put crew on the boat, and steal the fuel if it was a tanker boat, or food or whatever. Or sometimes they just would sink the boat. But these guys would fight back. Okay? So submarines, U-boats were used, and the merchant marine vessel may know if they had good radar or sonar, which I doubt they had most of the time. They would know there's a submarine in the area, but they couldn't do much about it. They couldn't shoot it. Now, a lot of times the submarine, the U-boat, would try to take out the merchant marine vessel, not using their precious torpedoes, which they were saving for military targets or more juicy targets. They would surface, and they had a deck gun, which was usually something like a 5-inch gun, and they would try to take out the ship with the gun, and then the ship would shoot back at the submarine, which is a hard target. It's very low in the water, and it just has that conning tower, so it's not easy. And a lot of times the German guns would outgun, in terms of range, the merchant marine vessels, so they would distance the submarine far enough away that the merchant marine vessel couldn't hit them, and they could hit the boat. So just giving you a little background how this thing goes. So are they about to start arming boats to go through the Red Sea? I doubt it. First of all, it would take a few years. It would take them months to sit there and try to figure out a policy. Forget it. It ain't going to happen. Okay? Now, what happens if the Houthis grab another 1 or 2 of these merchant marine ships? Insurance companies are not governments. The insurance companies are going to say, what are we doing? We're insuring the crew. They're going to hold them for ransom. So now we got to pay ransoms. They're insuring the boat itself, might be different insurance company. So if the boat's stolen or destroyed, they lose. And they insure the cargo. This might be all different insurance companies, but they're all going to universally sit there and scratch their head and say, I'm sure by the time the Houthis do a 3rd ship, they're going to say, all right, we're done. No, everybody that we're insuring, if you go in the Red Sea, we will not pay any claims. If you're in the Red Sea, you got, 2 or 3 days to get out, and that's it. Okay? This is the big fear that America had. This is the big fear that they have of Iran doing this in the Persian Gulf. Because it's going to stop the flow of the oil tankers and other products. Oil tankers insure the cargo, the crew, and the boat itself. It's the same deal. No insurance, the owner of a boat that costs $80 million or $200 million, he's not going to let people go sail that boat in these dangerous, treacherous places unless he puts in a disclaimer. if something happens due to, bad seas or a storm or something like that, we'll cover the insurance. But if it's something to do with a terrorist group, you're on your own. No insurance. Who's going to go? Nobody. Nobody's going to go. Why are they going to go? I mean, they don't have insurance. They're not insane, and they know it's dangerous. And the crews aren't going to want to go. What crew member's going to want to go? This is a one-off. If it happens a second time, I think you'll see things start diminishing. And a third time, I'm sure, there's going to be a reduction in ships in the Red Sea that's going to be pretty high. Okay? What America could do is do what they did in World War II. They create an armada, or more correctly, a flotilla or a convoy of ships. So they could, down by the Arabian Sea at a safe distance, they could collect 25 ships, okay, and send 2 or 3 American destroyers and missile cruisers with them. And they all stay in close contact. And they travel the Red Sea close together, and they're under the protection of the warships. Would that work? Yes. What would the Houthis be able to do about that? Not much. Shoot anti-ship missiles at them. If they're good enough to take the ship out, the Houthis win. You see, the defense mechanisms are on the Navy warships. So if they send enough missiles out simultaneously, it'll overcome the defense systems, and the merchant marine ships will get hit, and then the insurance will have to pay, and it's going to be the end of that too. They could also provide air cover by having planes fly overhead to keep an eye on the ships. I don't think there's a threat of submarines coming from Yemen. So now what happened? There's a place called Jeddah in Saudi Arabia that's on the Red Sea. The Americans have a ship in the Middle East theater for some weeks now called the Bataan. It's one of those small aircraft carriers. It's about 850 feet, 900 feet. It's not quite as large as Gerald Ford that comes in at about 1,100 feet. It can carry a small amount of vertical takeoff planes, like the F-35s that can do that. Maybe 8, something like that. 10, I don't know. Not a lot. And it can carry maybe 15 or 20 helicopters at the same time. The Bataan is packing 2,500 Expeditionary Force Marines. Okay? It has some equipment inside, armored personnel carrier tanks, rocket launchers, towed artillery, things like this. Why is it all of a sudden docked up at Jeddah? Well, are they planning some sort of an attempt to get the hostages or the prisoners of war back, the 50 guys they took off the ship? Yeah, but the amount of numbers they have there, 2,500 Marines, is a joke. I'll explain. In 2010, the Houthis were estimated to have 100,000 to 120,000 soldiers. That's 13 years ago. I would say today we would need to assume they've got about 200,000. If it's lower, let's make it 150,000. The Yemen government regular army armed forces is 67,000. So you got over 200,000 soldiers. Okay? 2,500 can't do it. There's a second ship in theater like the Bataan that I think has 1,800 and some expeditionary forces. Can they add those into it and get there? I doubt it. If the goal is to free those captives, they're going to be under heavy guard someplace. They're going to be underground in a bunker. The Houthis got underground bunkers like Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. Come on. And they'll have thousands of troops around there. How are you going to do it? You can't. If they assembled 25,000 troops and they position the warships to shoot missiles and rockets in there, and they use a large amount of aircraft, like at least 50, probably over 100, to bomb strategic targets in Yemen, they would be able to weaken the Yemen defenses significantly, and America would be able to do a ground invasion with special forces and so forth, and attempt to free these prisoners of war. But if the Houthis decided to just execute them when the invasion started, then what's America going to do? Biden will look so bad, and if that happens, and it's in an election year, Biden will not do it. Biden, before the Houthis did this, didn't know what to do. The Americans were defending ships or whatever by picking up Houthi missile launchers and taking the missiles down. Now with the helicopter, they don't know what to do. They invade, and then the Houthis say boom, 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 and they put it on video and they kill all the hostages or the captives. Or they move them. They could spread them in, 20 locations. Look at how bad the American Special Forces and the Israeli Special Forces have done with little old Hamas. How we're not doing well with the hostages at all. We don't know if they're alive. We found dead bodies in them in the hospitals we went into. We're examining all the dead bodies in the morgues and stuff and trying to see who's a hostage. And we found a few. Not many, I think 2 or 3. So are the 200 plus hostages really at 239 now, I think? Are they really alive? We don't know. The Red Cross can't get access to them or doesn't want to get access to them. So what does Biden do? Ignore this? There'll be more of it. Now, let's look at the enormity of the threat that Biden has. This whole thing was about attacking Iran. You don't bring 70 plus warships to the Middle East to fight Hezbollah and Hamas. Maybe one aircraft carrier with 3 or 4 escorts would do it. The Houthis have threatened to sink American ships, and they have missiles that anti-ship missiles Iran makes, which I'm sure are inspired by or even replicas or reproductions of Chinese and Russian anti-ship missiles. So they could be effective. You see the problem that America is getting into? What do they do now? They're being attacked in Iraq and Syria by these various militia groups. They've admitted to 70 such attacks. There could have been a lot more. Maybe not. I don't know. Before they attack Iran seriously, which is going to require a ground invasion, they're going to need to get up to about 600 to 800,000 infantry to invade Iran. That's what it's going to take. Those are the estimates. Best case, America might just contribute 400,000 and get 200,000 out of NATO and their allies. I doubt that. America would probably have to come up with more like about 480,000 or 500,000, and then maybe get 100,000 from their allies. It's a really big job. Before they invade Iran, they have to bomb the beachhead in the Persian Gulf of Iran, and that's going to take 1 or 2 weeks. They got to knock the radar out anywhere near there so missiles don't land on the beach. They got to knock out missile launchers that are immature, that don't use radar, so missiles don't land on the beachhead. They got to knock out artillery, mobile artillery, towed artillery, tanks, so they don't pelt the beachhead with artillery and missiles during the landing. Then they would bring in a few thousand special forces types, Rangers, Recon Marine, Expeditionary Force, Raiders, whatever, and put probably 5,000 or 10,000 on the beach by ship, okay, and hold the beachhead with a lot of air support and naval support, being naval missiles and rockets. Planes would be constantly overhead. Then it would take a couple of weeks, a week or two, for them to establish a beachhead, an operating base on the beach area of Iran, okay? And that would include a number of things. It would include setting up facilities, which could be tanks or quickly put together buildings, prefabricated buildings, and they would have, for sure, a hospital. Food facilities to feed the soldiers, quartermaster corps with spare equipment, mechanics to work on the vehicles, large ammo dumps, communication centers, intelligence centers where they could take prisoners for intelligence gathering, interrogations. They would have to secure it against the ground invasion somehow. There would be a massive undertaking there to set that place up. Then when they set it up and it's all solid for a week or two, then they start pushing inland. They start bringing in all kinds of tanks and heavy equipment. Okay? I gotta see what this message is. This would take a good amount of time. So now it's probably about a month, okay? From the time they started bombing till they actually could start going into Iran. Would America win? They would win. Would their losses be high? Their losses would be high. To go to Tehran is something like 600 miles from the beach. There are roads they could use. Iran could mine the roads. Iran could blow the roads up, booby trap them, IEDs on the side, mines, who knows what, right? So they may have to be repairing the roads as they go. But there's a lot of mountainous, rough terrain, which is going to be very hard. Tanks don't climb mountains, So they need the roads. But they got, CBs and stuff like that can repair blown up holes in roads very easily. But it slows them down. Okay? And there's several large cities in Iran. Tehran is 16 million people. Look at the problems of the Israeli army. Now, the Israeli army is a very highly advanced army. And we're having so much trouble with the underground tunnels and underground bunkers in Gaza. You can only imagine. Iran is 25 times more sophisticated than them. Now, do you know that Cuba has underground bunkers and tunnels that dwarf what Hamas has? I looked at video, and the ceilings, I thought when I wrote it up on Telegram, would be 9 to 12 feet. I think it's even higher. It could be 15, 18-foot ceilings. And they're wide enough to put trucks through. And they're very heavily reinforced. You see, they got beams made out of steel keeping it up. They're concrete. I don't know how far down they are. That's Cuba. And there's missiles on the sides of the walls of these bunkers. And you better believe they're Russian and Iranian missiles in Cuba, in bunkers. Let's call it the axis of evil, although the other side isn't exactly very clean. This axis of evil have realized that America has extreme air superiority. They fight from the air, which is missiles, rockets, mortars, artillery, bombs, right? And they can't hold up against it, okay? So they dig underground where they're immune from these things. Now, is that a perfect solution? No, it's not. Because they have to have things on the surface of the earth to maintain the army and the government that could be readily attacked. Like what? Well, I mean, if you want to get desperate, the water supply, right? The reservoirs, the rivers, the dams, you blow them open. Okay? The electricity, the radar, the oil tanks where they store oil, where they store grain, but many, many, many different types of food are stored underground. They got enough to go a long time. They probably stock up food for 2 years. MREs, canned food, vacuum sealed food. Easy. It's not hard. It's simple. Okay? Things are cold down there. They don't rot. You don't get 90 degrees in the tunnels. It's much, much cooler. If it's in the desert and it's 115 degrees, it's probably 70 or 60 degrees in the tunnel. Okay? Or maybe it's a little warmer, but depends on where you are, what time of year, how deep the tunnel is, lots of variables. America has 30,000 pound bunker buster bombs. They go down 200 feet, we're told. Iran's nuclear facilities and probably many other facilities are 300 feet down. But it's not just how many feet down, it's how thick are their concrete walls and ceilings and how strong are they. If the concrete walls and ceilings are 9 feet thick, oh man, you got a problem. If they're, 18 inches, it's not such a problem. I don't know how thick they are. You can't see from the inside. Probably about 3 feet. And they got steel girders or beams to keep it up. And how many of these does America have? Iran's tunnel network and underground bunker network is going to dwarf what Hamas has. Cuba's looks like, they're like underground highways, like the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel in New York. They're really well done. They're not that sophisticated, but they're pretty well done. You can drive trucks through them, tanks, so they can store all kinds of stuff. Then the country comes and blows their radar up, takes out as many as their airplanes that aren't underground, because they build hangars underground too. The planes just taxi in underground. So you're going to destroy a lot of stuff, but people like America don't go around blowing up apartment buildings. Putin does, but America won't. China probably would, but America wouldn't. North Korea would, but America wouldn't. Iran would, but America wouldn't. So you see the idea? So yeah, you can create a lot of infrastructure problems, but if you do that and then you just leave, they just resurface and rebuild. Got it? So you got to invade them, and then you got to get them out of the tunnels or kill them in the tunnels, and that's going to take weeks and weeks and weeks. How do you occupy a city with 16 million people? I'm sure that the Pentagon war colleges have worked this out, but could you imagine how many troops you'd have to deploy just in Tehran? The Iranians are not the village idiots. They have thousands of IRGC and intelligence agents and stuff like that in their own country that are prepared to go underground. They have houses they can move into and stuff like that, and cause a terrible resistance movement on any occupying force. It would make what happened to Germany and France look like child's play. Okay? Why does Cuba have all these underground bunkers and missiles and stuff? Because they're another part of the snare on America. America got a lot of problems from Cuba. Now, Cuba's not going to provoke America before the time, but when the time comes and they attack America, who's they? North Korea, China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, probably a few others. When they attack America, there'll be a lot of Muslim states involved in this. Cuba can help. Cuba could at least hit Florida, right? Okay. 90 miles to the tip of Florida, so they could hit Florida. And cause America to have to deploy a lot of assets down there to stop Cuba, while Russia comes in a much northerly position, like Washington, D.C., for instance. Okay. Cuba's suffered from sanctions from America for the longest time. These sanctions have provoked these countries because they know Trump started them, and they know if they ignore the sanctions, they're going to be destroyed economically, which is going to lead to civil insurrection, chaos, and they can't have that. And they're all busted out. Russia's busted out, Iran's busted out, Lebanon's busted out, Hamas is a joke, Cuba doesn't have such a great economy, Iraq's very unhealthy economically, they're busted out, and so is Syria. And the countries that are not busted out, who are they? Yemen, I'm sure, has a horrible economy too. They have sanctions, so I'm pretty sure. So Saudi, they're not doing anything. They're helping America. Jordan, helping America. UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, they're helping America. They don't want to be on the wrong side of this. When I say wrong side of this, I don't say biblically, I say in their opinion. But I'm going to take a break for a minute. And we'll go back, we'll pick this up and take it even deeper because it gets even worse. America is in bad trouble right now. And the aircraft carriers are not stopping anybody. They're being ignored. The reason they're being ignored is because they're underground and they're impervious to these bombings. I'll come right back. Hi, honey. You make myself a soup. Have soup. Made myself a cup of soup. It's cold here. The houses are made entirely out of concrete, and they get cold. In the summer, it works in your favor, but not in the winter. In the summer, it does good. Okay. Now let's go through the scripture that America is in the snare. I have it written down, I'll find it. Jeremiah 50:24. America's the daughter of Babylon. I've covered that countless times. You go through my YouTube channel and you'll find all kinds of videos on that. The videos in my YouTube channel are not under videos, they're under live. Because I predominantly do live streams, okay? So, this is how it reads. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babel. That's Babylon. It's in Hebrew, it's actually Babel. They just call it Babylon. And thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. The Lord hath opened his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of Adonai Jehovah in the land of the Chaldeans. That's in America. Come against her from her utmost border. Open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. This is the America, and this is happening. This is the buildup for it right now. America has just very recently, in the last 10 days or so, selling more weapons to Japan. 400 Tomahawk missiles, I believe, went to Japan. They're selling all kinds of weapons to Taiwan. They're selling all kinds of weapons to Australia. Why? To fight China. China's encroaching on the Philippines. And of course, Taiwan. They wake up in the morning in Taiwan and they find out a certain amount of Chinese planes, depending on the day, violated their airspace. And they got anywhere from 4 to 9 Chinese naval vessels offshore surrounding them every day, or almost every day. It's a 110-mile trip from China to Taiwan. 110 miles at a boat going 25, 30 miles an hour. Nothing. It's a commute. Not exactly a commute, but it's pretty close. Okay? Now, China doesn't actually attack Taiwan yet. They've drawn a lot of American assets, military assets, into the area, into Japan, into South Korea. North Korea is constantly threatening South Korea. And China's constantly threatening the Philippines. And of course, Taiwan. Now Iran is threatening America in the Middle East, so they're drawing all this massive amount of weapons there. Now Russia's threatening not only Ukraine, which it's attacking avidly for 15 months, 18 months or so, more. 20 months. And they've been taking immigrants from Russia, probably heavy Muslim content to these immigrants, and getting them into Finland through the border crossings between Finland and Russia. So Finland has had to close their borders. And they're putting anti-tank concrete barricade type things. You know, they look like they're heavy concrete things that are, I guess about 4 feet high and a foot or two wide. You know, and the tanks have a very bad problem. They can't just ride over them, and it stops tanks. I guess they bury them in the ground or sink them in concrete in the ground or something like that. So the tensions between Finland and Russia are high. I told you, the name of this game is for Russia to have America fighting in Europe because they're in NATO, in countries other than Russia. Finland is great. It's on the Russian border. They'll also undoubtedly attack Poland because Poland is the landing place where they bring the weapons into Ukraine. They fly into Poland or otherwise ground transport them or train or whatever, and then they take them in across the border from Poland into Ukraine. Russia has fortified to the hilt Kaliningrad, which is that little piece of Russian territory right now, right by Poland, and Belarus, which is an ally of theirs, a close ally. So they're ready to hit Poland. And Finland is a piece of cake for them. Look, they could hit Finland, Norway, Denmark, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Moldova, Romania. These are all pushovers. And Russia, motherland Russia, survives. They're not fighting in Moscow. They're not fighting in St. Petersburg. They're fighting in these other countries. Russia's never deployed their crack troops to Ukraine. They keep them back in America, in Russia. They broke out 3,000 old tanks, old vintage tanks out of storage to put them in Ukraine. They take new draftees that are inexperienced, poorly trained, put them in Ukraine. They do deploy sophisticated missiles in Ukraine. And they use some aircraft there as well. Okay? So there's a plethora of targets Russia can start with. And before the NATO people attack Russia, they have to suppress them in these other countries. Or otherwise everything gets screwed up. It doesn't work. If Russia's fighting Finland, if Russia's fighting Poland and fighting Romania and fighting Moldova, which Russia could do, because they've been drafting people for a long time now, it takes about 6 months to create a good infantry fighter. That's it. Not experienced, but they put the experienced guys in as like the sergeants to advise them and help them, you know. But and NATO's going to run around like a chicken with their head cut off, fighting Russia to get them out of these other spots, and then they're going to say, well, now we got to demilitarize Russia and split it up into 2 or 3 countries and stuff like that. That would be their plans, like what they did with Germany in World War II, the end of World War II. Okay? So what is Russia doing about it? Iran is drawing America in badly. America can't not attack Iran unless they wake up and they say, let's leave the Middle East alone. Forget about it. God will defend Israel. I don't care. I think that's the best thing for us. Will America do that? I would say right now there's 2 chances, slim and none. We do read that America runs away from the Middle East. I'll read you the scripture. Let me find it and then I'll read it to you. It's in Jeremiah 50:44. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan. That would mean they're in Jordan, very close to the Galilee, Sea of Galilee. Unto the habitation of the strong, that's Israel, who at this point is strong, but will make them suddenly run away from her. And who is the chosen one that he made? Okay, so it's apparently the two witnesses that scared them away, but they'll be in Jordan. Why would they be in Jordan? Well, first of all, understand they're loading up Jordan for weeks now with military equipment and soldiers. They don't want to see Jordan fall. The king of Jordan is not stable. His military could easily throw a coup. He's a dumbbell to start with, okay? He got the country from his father, the dictator there. It was like a family business hand-me-down. He's a very unaccomplished person. He got some dingbat for a queen. So you see the type of Muslim orientation that Saudi, Jordan, Oman, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, they have. They're more leaning towards the Sunni side of the fence, and they're not as aggressive. And they're not very interested in Hamas and Hezbollah. They don't care. You see, the Quran purists don't believe in dictatorships. They don't believe in a king. Iran doesn't have that. Okay? They have totalitarian rule, but they're not looking for that. They want the wealth distributed to the people, which the Saudis and Jordan and all that, they don't do that. The kings lavish themselves in palaces that could be 50,000 square feet, built on 30 acres, stuff like this. Hundreds of servants, private jets, yachts, mansions, everything. They buy the best consumer goods and food in the world. They pamper themselves. They don't want to be taken over by a terrorist group because they'll get executed. And America leaves them alone. America lets them eat caviar and drive $500,000 cars and stuff like that, and that's what they like. America has basically starting to discover they're defeated before it starts. They can't get through these countries that went underground years ago and really did a good job of fortifying themselves in bunkers and tunnels. They can't take them out. America doesn't have enough ground forces. It can't handle the Pacific problems. China will attack Taiwan. China will attack the Philippines. China will attack Japan. North Korea will attack South Korea and even Japan. The amount of infantry they'll need, and the aircraft they have, the Navy ships they have, the missiles they have, they don't have the infantry, but they'll need it. They don't have it. In World War II, Switzerland has a lot of caves and mountains and stuff, and they had a massive reserve army. To this day, they still do it. The guys take their their kit home. They take their assault weapon, they take ammo, they take uniforms, the basic supplies and stuff with them, so they could be activated on a phone call or something like that right out of their house. And there's caves they could go to. They have artillery in the caves, probably missiles and stuff like that. Germany didn't want to mess with them. They were smart people. They weren't backward people like the Russians, towing artillery with horses and stuff like that. The Swiss weren't that way. It would have been a bad move for Hitler to take them on early on in the war. After he got rid of France and the UK and Russia, if he ever got that far, which he never did, then he probably would have went on Switzerland. Never got that far. Japan didn't want to attack the United States because one of their admirals said everybody in America's got a gun. How do you invade that country? The destruction in America is going to come by fires. It's in the Bible. Specifically in Jeremiah 50:51. Remember the Chinese blimps were coming around? Well, we thought they were Chinese blimps, these balloons, and people were saying they're starting fires. Well, that could have been the test. Maybe not. There's a lot of ways to start fires. Sleeper agents can start fires. See, the survivalists in America, the gun nuts, the militias, they are preparing for an encounter with bullets. But what are they going to do with fires? Do they have reserve fire battalions where they have trucks with, water supply? They don't have any of that. Did they go underground with tunnels and bunkers? Not that I know of. They probably should, but I don't think they did. How are they going to make it? In a word, they're not. They have no provision to survive massive fires. Nothing. A very small percentage have a bug out location they go to. And they'll probably survive the fires over there, but the ground forces will probably get them. And when it ends, God washes waves all across the United States. Big waves. How big does a wave have to be to get to Kansas? I don't know. God could probably make a 5-foot wave travel that far if he wanted to, so I don't know. It may have to be a 500-foot wave. I don't know. But he does. And he knows exactly how to make it work. So they're not going to survive any of that. If China and Russia and Muslim states decided to invade America with Muslim armies and stuff like that, the gun people, the survivalists, the militias would have a field day massacring the soldiers. The soldiers wouldn't know what the heck hit them. They wouldn't know what hit them. These guys got sniper rifles that are better than what the armies have. They got night optics, day optics, better than what the army has. They shoot, they'll outshoot the commandos. They'll massacre these guys. The losses will be devastating. They know how to take out tanks. There's a lot of them that were in special forces. There'd be a slaughter. They know that. That's why they're going to fires. See, the basic American formula hit Iran would be, well, we go in, we take out their radar, we open up a corridor, then we knock out their missiles, we get their airfields, we get their planes, ammo depots, bases, missile depots, blah, 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 then we roll in and we conquer the country. Whoops, we're all underground. None of that's going to work now. Does America have a plan B? Not that I know of. If America wants to fold her hand, leave NATO, go back to America. Leave the Middle East, go back to America. Leave the Pacific and go back to America. Where does that leave America? It leaves America in a good shape. They have to start making their own cars again, making all their weapons again, growing all their food again, and they become an isolationist country, and they'd be too powerful for Russia and China and Iran to try to take out. And they could stay that way just by keeping their military equipment maintained, upgrading it constantly, and you know. And that's the America in the 50s, and it was a nice place to live. I was a kid growing up there, and it was a nice place. We made the cars. You know, in the 50s, you were able to buy a nice American car, a Mercury, a Ford, a Chevy, a nice four-door car, $900. Houses were $2,500. Gasoline was a dime a gallon. You know, you'd go out to eat. People would go to luncheonettes in like F.W. Woolworth stores, and they'd have a cheeseburger, fries, and a soda. It'd be, I don't know, 60, 65 cents, 70 cents, something like that. You know, nice lunch. You know? People were renting apartments, you know, $20 a month. America was on a silver standard. The currency was backed by silver. If you have gold or you have silver, it's the same thing. You're fine. Okay? That's not going to be destroyed. And God, when he redeems and restores Israel, that's the currency is going to be gold, made out of gold and silver. So you're okay with that. All the paper money is going to start collapsing as you see these things develop, as the wars expand. So what is America going to do? Not the right thing. What are they going to do? The way these war college trained guys work, this is what America's going to do. They're going to keep a naval and an air presence in the Persian Gulf to try as hard as they can to stop Iran from attacking ships in the Persian Gulf. They'll interdict. They won't bomb and attack Iran. They'll, if the Iranian vessel keeps persisting on attempting to capture the ship, they'll destroy the Iranian vessel. And then Iran will declare war on the United States. But they already have. They just haven't verbalized it. America will try to clean out all the militia groups inside Iraq and Syria that are attacking the bases. That's a big job. I don't know if they have tunnels or not, but that's a big job. And it's going to require thousands of ground forces. Okay? Can they do it? Yes. Am I sure they can do it? I'm sure they can do it. They can bust them up significantly so they're no longer a threat. I don't have doubt about this. Okay? What about the Houthis? Well, let's talk about what about Iraq when they start bringing thousands of troops into Iraq. Iraq will protest, and Iraq may start attacking them too, the government of Iraq, not just the militias, who's an ally of Iran. And Iran may send soldiers by ground into Iraq to help put some muscle into Iraq's big mouth. The idea there would be to draw America into a substantial ground war in Iraq and Syria, and that's what Iran will try to do. With the Houthis, it's already happening. If they ignore it, the Houthis are going to clip more ships. They'll clip 3-4 ships a week or more if they let them alone. 2,500 soldiers is a massacre if they try to invade Iraq. If they put the other expeditionary ship here and they get up to 4,500 or whatever, it's still a massacre. They can't do anything like that. They could try it, but it's going to be horrible. 25,000 would work with armor and air support. It would work. They would be able to sufficiently get involved inside Yemen to cause a lot of trouble for the Houthis, and depending how good their underground tunnel and bunker network is, we'll see. But rest assured, they're doing the same thing as Hamas. They're going to be putting the bunkers and tunnels under the hospitals, the schools, things like that. Residential areas, they have lots of rockets they'll be launching at any invading army inside Yemen. It would be Hamas on spades or on steroids. Hezbollah keeps steadily increasing the attacks on Israel. There's like 25 a day now. And Israel increases the counterattacks. Israel has already released soldiers that were called up in the reserves for Gaza. They said, we don't need you guys anymore now, and sent them home. So that's how easy the victory's getting to look in Hamas. Yet they were still yesterday doing missile barrages. I can't, and I don't understand why this is still going on. I don't know. I'm sure the IDF is working on it. And I don't know the problem because they're not telling us, but it must be something complicated. I don't know. But it's still happening all the time, the missiles, and it's very bad for Israel. And that'll have to stop. Now, there might actually be some sort of a hostage exchange, although Netanyahu keeps denying it. They're saying it's something with exchange of 50 hostages. I don't know if they're foreign or Israeli. I don't know. Men, women, children. I don't know. For a ceasefire of a few days or something like that. No, I don't know. I really don't know. I believe the security cabinet is divided as to what to do with this. It'll make Biden happy. It'll be a good security move in a way, but not really. I don't know if they'll do it. Now, let me take a quick look and see. Hold on. It won't be that long to check. I'll check the major newspapers online and see if anything is brewing. They'll carry that story immediately. Israel recalled their diplomats from South Africa after South Africa calls for Netanyahu's arrest. That's funny. South Africa hates Israel. I mean, verbally outspoken and everything. The Hamas is saying that a ceasefire is close with a prisoner exchange. So that means we're going to have to give them some prisoners. So that's, let me see if I can find anything more updated. That's 40 minutes ago, so probably accurate. Check one or two other sources just to make sure. If Hamas says that it's close, it means nothing. It means nothing. You can't listen to these people. They just lie incessantly. You can't pay any attention to them. You don't know. And if there is a ceasefire, I guarantee you they'll break it. Because that's how not all, but almost all the ceasefires would then end with them breaking it. And if the ceasefire is supposed to start at 11 o'clock in the morning. At 10:59 or 11 or 11:01, they'll launch a rocket barrage, knowing nobody's going to do anything about it. Another newspaper is saying a hostage deal is now. Let me see if they're giving any details. But I'm not seeing Netanyahu say anything yet. So Netanyahu's not denying it nor affirming it. They're not giving the details. Let me see if I find it anywhere else. We're getting vague things. The hostage deal could involve 50 to 100 hostages returned. It appears that, according to Hamas, it's going to involve us giving prisoners in jail for terrorism over to Hamas, releasing them. Tit for tat, and a ceasefire. Oh, it's freeing women and children now we're getting. So Hamas will free women and children, and Israel will free women and children, prisoners of terrorists, convicted terrorists. It's a 5-day ceasefire limiting Israeli air operations over the southern Gaza Strip. In addition, 300 Palestinians detained in Israel, including women and children, would be released. Oh. It's just at this point speculation. I've seen this many times where the media says we're close to a deal and they're not. I don't know if Israel's going to release 300 prisoners, stuff like that. I have no idea. I don't see it myself. Israel might take the captured Hamas soldiers that we have and exchange them for the hostages. That I could see. But these captured Hamas soldiers have been interrogated by us. So we've got mountains of information from them. So my opinion is America is going to try to work against the militias attacking the bases in Iraq and Syria aggressively, and they're going to do something to the Houthis. They've got to, and they've got to prevent Iran from getting ugly. Give me a second here. So you're going to see Hezbollah. Now, what's Hezbollah going to do? If there's a ceasefire, are they going to cease fire? I doubt it. Hezbollah is going to keep it up. Hold on a second. Will Hamas break the ceasefire? I guarantee it. I can't guarantee it, but I highly expect them to. But not for a few days. This is Biden's doing more than it is Netanyahu's. This isn't how Netanyahu would roll. Netanyahu's idea was to just keep pressuring and pressuring and pressuring Hamas till they surrender, hostages and all. And Biden is trying to stop it. I don't think America knows what they're going to do with the Houthis yet. So they got to do something. And they got to stop these attacks on the bases. Now, the delay in this could be that America is still bringing more resources in. And we don't know what they are. A lot of cargo planes are coming in to Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and they could be soldiers on there and they could be equipment or both, and it's hard to say. But I believe a lot of it is soldiers now. The sleepers in America have not been activated. They're waiting probably for America to get stretched very thin, and then they'll activate them to create tremendous chaos for America. And this snare is going to work. It's going to lead to the invasion of America because their forces are spread out all over the world. Checking notes here to see if I left anything out. I don't think so. What's the time frame on this? Real time. It's happening every day. The generals in the Pentagon, I'm sure, have realized that threatening Iran is a complete waste of time. It doesn't work. The same with the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas. Aircraft carriers, schmaircraft carriers, they don't care. It's not working. So they know they got to go to war. And we just got to wait for it to go. I don't know what America's waiting to bring here. They're depleted of aircraft carriers. They probably would like more submarines that can launch missiles and maybe more tanks, armored personnel carrier, artillery, rocket launching pods, anti-missile missiles, and maybe this is what they're staging up. I don't know. So I don't think there's going to be much of a wait at all. I think you'll see end times events become more rapid, larger in scale and scope, and they'll be happening all around the world, and things will become extremely confusing and bewildering to follow. That's what I think. Do I have any questions that I might be able to answer? I could wait and see if anybody wants to put anything up in the chat with a question. I'll try to answer it. Hamas is close to being dismantled. I mean, we've damaged a lot of their tunnels already. It's miraculous to me that they can still launch rockets, but they can. They did barrages yesterday. And I don't know when we'll stop their ability to launch missiles, but I mean, it won't be long. I don't know what their approach to it is now, but we'll have to wait. There could be a ceasefire. Could be. After the ceasefire, Hamas probably have a replenished supply of missiles which they manufacture. And I don't know if I have any questions. Let's look. No, I'm not getting any questions. All right. So I will keep you updated. Make sure you subscribe. There's nobody that I know of on any social media presenting the war to you the way I am with the prophecy. So subscribe, and I do live stream updates when serious events happen, so you'll get notified. Click the notification bell. As I told you earlier, join me in Telegram. Download Telegram Messenger, install it, send me an app, and send me an email that says Telegram in the subject header. I'll send you the invite link. My email address is israelgiving with the number 7@gmail.com. israelgiving, one word, with the digit 7@gmail.com. Okay, so I'm Moshe, my wife's Rivka. Please pray for our peace, safety, protection. Pray we don't have to go in the bomb shelters, and pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Offering information is in the description box. We take Patreon and GoFundMe. And that's about it. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And then, how does my sidekick know that I'm going off the air? I can't figure it out. She comes over here. She knows I'm signing off. How smart is she? I don't understand what kind of vocabulary she has. She does this with great consistency. I'm stumped. I don't know how she knows I'm signing off, unless she recognizes English words and Hebrew words. I don't know. This is Yafa. She's a Pekingese. Pekingese used to be the royal dog for the Chinese royalty. Only they could own the Pekingese. They're lap dogs. And the whole problem with her and the other one, Chief, is that they refused to forget that they were the dogs of royalty. Anyway, she's my girl. She's a good kid most of the time. Most of the time. She likes me. She likes to cuddle with me. She'll sit on me for hours if I let her, you know. But I think the Lord has better things for me to do than sit here and pet dogs all day. So, okay, sweetheart, down you go. Don't worry. Don't worry. Here you go. Okay, guys. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I am out.